Wounded mama bear leads woman to dying cub. But what she finds there, in the heart of the vast Alaskan wilderness, a lone grizzly bear wandered through the dense forest, her fur matted with blood and her eyes filled with desperation. She had given birth to her cub just a few days earlier, but now the tiny creature lay motionless, its life ebbing away. The bear's cries echoed through the woods, her anguish palpable. She had tried everything she could think of to save her cub, but to no avail. The cub was too weak, too frail, and the bear knew that there was nothing more she could do. As the bear's despair deepened, she stumbled upon a small clearing in the forest. In the center of the clearing was a woman, sitting cross-legged on the ground, her eyes closed in meditation. The bear hesitated for a moment, unsure of how the woman would react to her presence. But then she remembered the cub, and she knew that she had to try. She let out a low growl, and the woman opened her eyes. She looked at the bear, her expression one of compassion. "What is it, bear?" she asked gently. The bear pointed to her cub, who lay motionless on the ground. The woman nodded, understanding. She stood up and walked over to the cub. She knelt down and gently touched the cub's forehead. The cub stirred slightly, and then its eyes opened. It let out a whimper and the woman smiled. "It's okay, little one," she said softly. "I'm here to help." The bear watched as the woman picked up the cub and cradled it in her arms. The cub snuggled close to the woman, its cries subsiding. The woman looked up at the bear and smiled. "Thank you, bear," she said. "You have saved my cub's life." The bear nodded, a look of relief washing over her face. "I will never forget your kindness," she said. The woman smiled again. "I know you won't," she said, "and I will never forget you." With that, the woman turned and walked away, the cub still cradled in her arms. The bear watched her go, a sense of peace washing over her. She knew that her cub was in good hands now. The woman, whose name was Sarah, carried the cub back to her cabin, a small wooden structure nestled deep within the forest. She had lived in the Alaskan wilderness for many years, seeking solace and tranquility in the embrace of nature. Sarah laid the cub gently on her bed and examined it closely. The cub was small, even for its age, and its breathing was shallow. Sarah knew that it was in a critical condition. She quickly gathered some herbs and prepared a poultice, which she applied to the cub's wounds. She then wrapped the cub in a warm blanket and held it close to her chest, hoping to transfer some of her own body heat to the tiny creature. Throughout the night, Sarah stayed by the cub's side, monitoring its breathing and whispering words of comfort. She knew that the cub's chances of survival were slim, but she refused to give up hope. As the first rays of dawn filtered through the trees, the cub stirred. Sarah held her breath, watching as the cub's eyes fluttered open. The cub looked up at Sarah, its eyes filled with confusion. Sarah smiled gently and stroked the cub's fur. "It's okay, little one," she said softly. "You're safe now." The cub let out a soft whimper and nuzzled closer to Sarah. Sarah's heart swelled with joy. She had saved the cub's life. Over the next few days, Sarah nursed the cub back to health. She fed it milk from a bottle and kept it warm and comfortable. The cub, which Sarah named Hope, thrived under her care. As Hope grew stronger, Sarah began to take her outside for short periods of time. Hope was fascinated by the world around her, and she would often scamper off to explore, much to Sarah's amusement. One day, as Sarah and Hope were playing in the clearing, they heard a rustling in the bushes. Sarah turned to see a large grizzly bear emerge from the trees. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. She knew that this was Hope's mother. The bear approached Sarah and Hope cautiously. She sniffed the air, her eyes fixed on Hope. Sarah held her breath, unsure of what the bear would do. But then, the bear did something unexpected. She gently nudged Hope with her nose, as if to say hello. Hope, in turn, nuzzled against the bear's fur. Sarah watched in amazement as the bear and her cub interacted. It was clear that they recognized each other. After a few minutes, the bear turned and walked away, disappearing into the trees. Hope watched her go, a look of sadness in her eyes. Sarah knelt down and hugged Hope close. "It's okay, Hope," she said softly. "Your mother knows that you're safe now." Hope looked up at Sarah, her eyes filled with trust. Sarah smiled. She knew that she had made a friend for life. Weeks turned into months, and Hope flourished under Sarah's care. She grew bigger and stronger, her playful antics bringing joy to Sarah's solitary life. The cabin, once quiet and still, now echoed with the sounds of Hope's playful growls and the patter of her paws. Sarah found herself talking to Hope constantly, sharing her thoughts and feelings with the cub as if she were a lifelong friend. One evening, as Sarah sat by the fire reading, Hope suddenly became agitated. She paced around the cabin, whining and pawing at the door. Sarah tried to calm her, but Hope was insistent. Finally, Sarah decided to follow Hope outside. The cub led her to the edge of the clearing, where a large male grizzly bear stood waiting. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. This bear was much larger than Hope's mother, and his demeanor was less gentle. Hope ran towards the male bear, who greeted her with a low growl. Sarah watched nervously as the two bears interacted. The male bear seemed to be assessing Hope, sniffing her and nudging her with his nose. After a few tense moments, the male bear turned and walked away, Hope following close behind. Sarah's heart sank. She knew that Hope was leaving with her father, returning to the wild where she belonged. Sarah watched as the two bears disappeared into the trees, tears streaming down her face. She felt a profound sense of loss, as if a part of her had been ripped away. She returned to the cabin, the silence deafening. The fire had died down, leaving the room cold and dark. Sarah curled up on the bed, Hope's scent still lingering on the blankets. Days turned into weeks, and the silence in the cabin grew heavier. Sarah missed Hope terribly. She missed her playful energy, her affectionate cuddles, and the companionship she had brought into her life. One afternoon, as Sarah was chopping wood outside, she heard a familiar sound, a soft whimper coming from the edge of the clearing. She turned to see Hope standing there, looking thinner and somewhat battered, but her eyes still held the same spark of joy. Sarah dropped the axe and ran towards Hope, tears of joy streaming down her face. Hope leaped into Sarah's arms, licking her face and whimpering with delight. Sarah held Hope close, her heart overflowing with love. She didn't know why Hope had returned, but she was overjoyed to have her back. As the sun began to set, Sarah noticed another figure emerge from the trees. It was Hope's mother, her fur matted and scarred. She looked at Sarah with a mixture of gratitude and apology in her eyes. Sarah realized that Hope's mother had been injured, perhaps in a fight with another bear. She had brought Hope back to Sarah, knowing that she would be safe and cared for. Sarah nodded to the mother bear, a silent understanding passing between them. The mother bear turned and disappeared into the trees, leaving Hope with Sarah. Sarah knew that Hope would likely return to the wild someday, but for now, she was content to have her back in her life. She had learned that love and connection could be found in the most unexpected places, even in the heart of the Alaskan wilderness. Life with Hope back in her life settled into a comfortable routine. The playful cub, now almost a yearling, was bigger and bolder, but no less affectionate. Sarah spent her days teaching Hope the ways of the forest, showing her which berries were safe to eat and which plants to avoid. She even began teaching Hope basic commands, like sit and stay, though Hope's obedience was often dependent on her mood. One crisp autumn morning, a sense of unease settled over Sarah. She couldn't place it, but something felt off. The forest seemed unusually quiet, the usual chatter of birds and squirrels replaced by an unsettling stillness. Even Hope seemed to sense the change, her playful energy replaced by a nervous alertness. As Sarah gathered firewood, she noticed a group of ravens circling overhead, their raucous caws echoing through the trees. Ravens were known to be scavengers, often drawn to the scent of death. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. Was something wrong? Later that day, while foraging for berries, Sarah stumbled upon a disturbing sight. A deer carcass lay sprawled on the forest floor, its flesh mangled and partially eaten. The sight sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. This was no ordinary predator. The kill was too brutal, too savage. That night, Sarah lay awake, listening to the sounds of the forest. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, sent her heart racing. She knew that something was out there, something dangerous. She hugged Hope close, the young bear's warmth offering a small sense of comfort. The next morning, Sarah decided to venture into the nearby village to gather supplies and seek information. Perhaps the villagers had seen something or heard rumors of unusual activity in the forest. The village was abuzz with talk of a rogue bear, a massive male grizzly that had been terrorizing livestock and even threatening humans. The villagers were terrified, and many were afraid to venture into the forest. Sarah listened to their stories with growing concern. Could this rogue bear be the same one that had taken Hope away? Was he now a threat to her and Hope? With a heavy heart, Sarah gathered her supplies and returned to the cabin. She knew that she couldn't stay in the village, not with Hope depending on her. But she also knew that she couldn't ignore the danger lurking in the forest. As she approached the clearing, Sarah noticed a set of large paw prints in the soft earth. They were much larger than any bear tracks she had seen before. Her heart sank. The rogue bear had been here. Sarah entered the cabin cautiously, her senses on high alert. She found Hope huddled in a corner, whimpering softly. Sarah rushed to her side, checking her for injuries. Thankfully, Hope seemed unharmed. Sarah knew that she had to protect Hope, but how? She was just one woman, and the rogue bear was a formidable opponent. She needed a plan, and she needed it fast. Sarah spent the next few days reinforcing the cabin, boarding up windows and securing the door with extra locks. She gathered a supply of firewood and food, preparing for a potential siege. She even sharpened her axe, a last resort weapon against the rogue bear. Hope remained skittish, her playful energy replaced by a constant state of anxiety. She clung to Sarah, seeking comfort in her presence. Sarah, in turn, did her best to reassure Hope, stroking her fur and whispering soothing words. One evening, as darkness fell, Sarah heard a loud crash outside. Her heart leaped into her throat. The rogue bear had arrived. She peered through a crack in the boarded-up window and saw the massive grizzly pacing outside the cabin, sniffing the air and growling menacingly. His fur was dark and matted, his eyes burning with a predatory glint. Sarah grabbed her axe, her hand trembling. She knew that she had to be strong, for Hope's sake. She couldn't let fear paralyze her. The bear began to ram the cabin door, its powerful blows shaking the entire structure. Sarah held her breath, praying that the door would hold. Suddenly, Hope let out a ferocious growl, her hackles raised. She lunged towards the door, barking and snarling. The bear paused, surprised by the cub's aggression. Sarah seized the opportunity. She flung open the door and charged out, axe raised high. The bear turned to face her, its eyes widening in surprise. Sarah swung the axe with all her might, striking the bear on its shoulder. The bear roared in pain and anger, swiping at Sarah with its massive paw. Sarah ducked just in time, the bear's claws grazing her arm. Hope joined the fight, biting and scratching at the bear's legs. The bear, distracted by the cub's attack, turned its attention away from Sarah. Sarah saw her chance. She raised the axe again and brought it down with a sickening thud, striking the bear on its head. The bear stumbled, its eyes rolling back in its head. It let out a final roar before collapsing to the ground, dead. Sarah stood over the fallen bear, her chest heaving, her body trembling. She had done it. She had protected Hope. Hope ran to Sarah, licking her face and whimpering with relief. Sarah knelt down and hugged Hope tightly, tears streaming down her face. The danger had passed, for now. But Sarah knew that the wilderness was a harsh and unforgiving place. She would always have to be vigilant, always ready to protect the one she loved. The aftermath of the attack left its mark on both Sarah and Hope. Sarah, though physically unharmed, was haunted by the ferocity of the encounter. She found herself constantly on edge, her senses hyper-alert to any sound or movement in the forest. Sleep became a luxury, nightmares of the rogue bear's menacing eyes jolting her awake. Hope, too, was changed. The playful innocence of her youth was gone, replaced by a wary vigilance. She no longer wandered far from the cabin, and her once carefree spirit was now tinged with a lingering fear. Despite the trauma, Sarah was determined to move forward. She knew that she couldn't let fear dictate her life, not with hope depending on her. She began to venture out again, cautiously at first, gradually regaining her confidence. One day, while gathering herbs near a stream, Sarah noticed a young woman sitting on a rock, sketching in a notebook. The woman looked up, startled by Sarah's approach. Sarah introduced herself, and the woman responded with a hesitant smile. Her name was Emily, and she was a wildlife artist, drawn to the Alaskan wilderness by its raw beauty and untamed spirit. Sarah and Emily struck up a conversation, a shared love of nature forming an instant bond between them. Emily was fascinated by Sarah's story, her eyes widening in awe as Sarah recounted her encounter with the rogue bear. Over the next few weeks, Sarah and Emily spent many hours together, exploring the forest, sharing stories, and sketching the wildlife. Emily's presence was a balm to Sarah's soul, her cheerful optimism a welcome contrast to Sarah's lingering anxieties. Emily was particularly drawn to Hope, captivated by the young bear's resilience and gentle spirit. She spent hours sketching Hope, capturing her every nuance and expression. One evening, as Sarah and Emily sat by the fire, Emily turned to Sarah with a thoughtful expression. "Sarah," she began, "I know this might seem like a strange request, but I was wondering if you would consider letting me paint Hope's portrait." Sarah was taken aback. She had never considered Hope as a subject for art, but the more she thought about it, the more she liked the idea. It would be a way to honor Hope's strength and courage, a testament to her survival. "I would be honored," Sarah replied, her voice filled with emotion. Emily beamed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. She began work on the portrait the next day, capturing Hope's essence with remarkable skill and sensitivity. As the portrait progressed, Sarah noticed a subtle shift in Hope's demeanor. The young bear seemed to sense the importance of the project, posing patiently for Emily and even seeming to enjoy the attention. When the portrait was finally finished, Sarah was speechless. Emily had captured Hope's spirit perfectly, her eyes conveying a depth of emotion that Sarah had never seen before. The portrait became a symbol of hope and resilience, a reminder of the bond between Sarah and Hope, and a testament to the healing power of art and friendship. Emily's portrait of Hope sparked a chain of events that neither woman could have anticipated. Emily, with Sarah's permission, submitted the painting to a prestigious wildlife art competition. To their astonishment, the portrait won first prize, garnering national attention and critical acclaim. Suddenly, Sarah and Hope found themselves thrust into the spotlight. Newspapers and magazines clamored for interviews, and television crews descended upon their remote cabin. Sarah, initially hesitant, agreed to share their story, hoping to raise awareness about the importance of wildlife conservation and the delicate balance of nature. Hope, ever the ham, reveled in the attention. She charmed reporters with her playful antics and gentle demeanor, becoming an unlikely media darling. The public was captivated by the story of the woman and her bear, a tale of resilience, love, and the enduring bond between humans and animals. The attention brought unexpected opportunities. A renowned publisher approached Sarah with an offer to write a book about her experiences. Sarah, with Emily's encouragement, agreed, pouring her heart and soul into the manuscript. The book, titled Hope in the Wild, became an instant bestseller, translated into multiple languages and adapted into a documentary film. Sarah's story touched the hearts of readers and viewers worldwide, inspiring a renewed appreciation for the natural world and the creatures that inhabit it. The success of the book and film brought financial security to Sarah, allowing her to expand her cabin and create a small wildlife sanctuary on her property. She rescued injured and orphaned animals, providing them with a safe haven and a second chance at life. Hope, now a mature bear, became an ambassador for the sanctuary, her gentle nature and captivating story drawing visitors from far and wide. She participated in educational programs, teaching children about the importance of respecting and protecting wildlife. Sarah's life had come full circle. The once solitary woman, seeking solace in the wilderness, had found a purpose greater than herself. She had become a voice for the voiceless, a champion for the wild, and a beacon of hope for a world in need of healing. Years passed, and the seasons turned in their endless cycle. Sarah, her hair now streaked with silver, continued her work at the sanctuary, her passion for wildlife undimmed. Hope, though no longer the playful cub she once was, remained a constant presence in Sarah's life, a loyal companion and a symbol of their enduring bond. One crisp autumn morning, Sarah awoke to find Hope behaving strangely. The usually energetic bear was lethargic, her movements slow and labored. Sarah knew instantly that something was wrong. She called the local veterinarian, who arrived with a heavy heart. After a thorough examination, the vet delivered the news Sarah had been dreading. Hope was old, her body succumbing to the inevitable toll of time. There was nothing more they could do. Sarah spent the next few days by Hope's side, comforting her aging friend and reminiscing about their shared adventures. She spoke of the day they met, of the rogue bear attack, of the portrait that changed their lives. Hope, though weak, seemed to understand, her eyes conveying a deep sense of love and gratitude. As the sun began to set on the final day, Hope took her last breath, her head resting peacefully in Sarah's lap. Sarah wept, her tears a mixture of grief and gratitude. She had lost her dearest friend, but she knew that Hope's legacy would live on. The sanctuary flourished, a testament to Hope's enduring spirit. Children visited, their eyes wide with wonder as they learned about the bear who had touched so many lives. Researchers came, studying the delicate ecosystem and the intricate web of life. And Sarah, now a respected elder, continued to share her story, inspiring generations to come. One evening, as Sarah sat on her porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of gold and crimson, she felt a familiar presence beside her. She looked down to see a young grizzly bear, its fur the color of burnished copper, its eyes filled with a mischievous spark. Sarah smiled. She knew that Hope's spirit lived on, not just in the sanctuary she had inspired, but in the wild heart of the Alaskan wilderness, where life continued its eternal dance. And in that moment, Sarah felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that the legacy of love she shared with Hope would endure, forever woven into the fabric of the land.